mute. Thank you. Okay. So to start off, I will get Ali to go through the ACC karakia as an opening for us this morning.
Kia ora everyone. Whaia, whaia, whaia te tika, whaia te pono, whaia te araha, mo te oranga tangata, kia puta ki te whao, kita o marama, homie, huie, taikie. And our ACC karakia means striving to do what is right, undertaking to act justly, being considerate of everyone, that it improves the lives of all. Thank you.
Thanks, Sally. Right, so our agenda today is in 8 chapters. There will be time for questions at the end of each chapter, but it's quite straightforward. We'll give you an overview of ACC, talk about cover, talk about lodging claims, a section on our digital services, a section on getting paid, registering, our resources, and of course how to contact us. So chapter 1. What is ACC? So manipulate that. So ACC is a Crown entity. We provide no-fault personal injury cover for New Zealanders and our visitors. The current legislation we are using is the Accident Compensation Act 2001. Sometimes we call it just the AC Act. And what do we do? Well, we help prevent injuries at work, at home, during sport and recreation, on the road, or injuries caused by treatment. So ACC is trying to reduce the physical, emotional and social impact of people's injuries, and we contribute to treatment costs and pay compensation to people unable to work because of their injuries. That's in a nutshell, ACC. Often people are very interested in how ACC is funded. So this slide explains how the funding works. And basically, we all pay for each other to keep the ACC scheme going. So we have different levies for motorists, workers and business owners. The government pays for non-earners, including visitors. ACC reinvests the money to pay for future costs of the scheme. So it works very well because New Zealand is quite unique geographically and where we are in the world. So that was chapter 1. Are there any questions that have come through, Ali?
Nope, no questions at this stage.
Okay, right. So I'm using 2 screens to manage the slides, so it's quite interesting. Anyway, we'll move on to chapter 2, which is cover. What is cover? Cover means the claim meets the criteria set out in the legislation. If it does, we'll contribute to or fully fund the treatment and any supports that are needed by our clients. So that, in a nutshell, what means when a claim is covered. People often say, well, what about if there's, if it was someone's fault? But of course, when ACC came in a very long time ago now, in 1974, New Zealanders gave up the right to sue the person or the incident, however they were injured. So that was the trade-off, is that the scheme was brought in, but people were unable to sue the party that they thought was at fault. So there is no fault. It's a no fault, no blame. So regardless of what the person was doing at the time of the accident. So what we can cover, we can provide cover for physical injuries that arise as the result of an accident, mental injuries related to physical harm, traumatic events at work or criminal acts, for example, sexual assaults. I might come back to that point in a minute. Then treatment injuries caused by a registered health practitioner during the course of treatment. And gradual process diseases or infections relating to work or work environments. So coming back to mental injuries, a person may sustain a mental injury if they've had a physical injury, for example, if they've lost a limb in an accident and then they've gone on to develop post-traumatic stress disorder. That might be one example. A traumatic event in the workplace, the client might not have been physically harmed, but it might be a shopkeeper who's there's been a burglary and they've had a gun pointed at them. They're not physically harmed in any way, but they go on to develop like a DSM-4 or 5 diagnosis around the trauma that situation created. And then the third way is the criminal act, as for example, sexual assault or abuse. So it was just a little bit more background for cover. There are some things that ACC can't cover. So the legislation excludes illness, sickness, or contagious diseases like measles, stress, hurt feelings, or other emotional issues. Quite often one that comes up is workplace bullying. We don't cover that unless they're linked to an injury we already cover. ACC doesn't cover injury conditions related to aging, for example, arthritis, or injuries that happen over time unless an activity at work is causing it. So I guess that's like your weekend warrior, someone who does a lot of weekend sports and develops like tennis elbow. And we don't cover most hernias. When we accept cover for a claim and provide support, that means we can see that there is an accident that meets the legislative description. The accident is caused by an identifiable injury. The treatment or support to be funded by us are needed as a direct result of the covered injury. And the covered injuries are identified by the coding. So mostly in general practice, READ codes are used. Hospitals use ICD-10 codes on the ACC 45. So making sure clients get the right cover. It's really important if a patient's diagnosis changes to let us know. And the quickest and easiest way is the ACC 18 or change of diagnosis form to let us know. So this medical certificate can be used specifically just to let us know that, well, the client presented with a sprained ankle. They refused to have an X-ray at the time because they were too busy. They came in 2 days later, still not weight bearing, and now the X-ray shows a fracture. So you can send in an ACC 18 to say that the diagnosis is a fracture rather than a sprain, because of course a fracture is going to take longer to heal and is going to require other interventions. So it's really important that we know about the change that's happened. And also it means that we can pay you for the treatment that is provided without question. So we have some examples here. So this is a little bit of an activity to identify the accident and the injury. So Gary was running on a bush track on a peaceful Sunday morning. He tripped and fell, dislocating his left shoulder. So the activity was running, the accident was the fall, and the injury was a dislocated left shoulder. That's quite straightforward. This example number 2, Jenny has had a minor car accident and came into the practice for a check over. The nurse practitioner examines her. No injury is identified and Jenny went home. So her activity was driving. The accident was a car accident, but there was no injury. So there's no ACC claim. So you can have an accident that doesn't result in an injury, and I think that's an important point. Then we have Chris, who was reaching up to hang new kitchen cupboards when he dropped the drill, which landed on his foot. That night he noticed a large bruise. So the activity was building. The accident was dropping something heavy onto his foot, and the injury is a bruise or contusion on his foot. Now we have Tama. Tama is stung by a bee and needs treatment for a severe allergic reaction. It is the first time he's had this kind of response. So his activity, well, he's outside playing. The accident was the bee sting, and the injury is the anaphylactic reaction. So I just wanted to pop in a thing about EpiPens here. So with Tama being a first time, he's probably taken to a medical centre or to an emergency department where he's given some adrenaline. He might be prescribed an EpiPen. EpiPens do expire if they're not used. So ACC doesn't pay to replace an expired EpiPen. ACC pays for a replacement once the pen has been used following a bee sting, because we have to link purchase of the new EpiPen to the injury event. So if the pen hasn't been discharged, there's been no injury event, if it's just expired. So that question might come up from time to time. So I've just popped that one in there with Tama. So are there any questions for the end of chapter 2?
Yes, Mary, there is one that it's been popped in by Simon Wong, so I didn't know who to go to, but I just need a little bit more information to answer it. It says, can you tell us a way we can send our ACC 45s regarding hearing problems due to work? We park our 45s every day and then release the next day. So I'm just a little confused about what this person's asking. So maybe just a little bit more information in the chat and I'll try and answer it.
And one good thing that is coming up with, we are now allowing audiologists to lodge ACC 45 claims for these hearing loss claims. So that will speed up the process for clients who've got this situation, and that might be, we might have some advice coming out in the near future about if you're wanting to have a claim lodged, it might be best if you go directly to the audiologist who can lodge the claim and get things underway for you. So there is something coming and we can provide some more information about that, and I'm sure there'll be something on our website about that as well. So that's a really good question. Thank you for that. Okay, so we'll move on to chapter 3, lodging claims, which ties in to that audiology one too. So the ACC 45 is how claims are lodged, and it's important to help us decide if an injury will be covered and under which category. So if you're checking claims before they're submitted or released, there are some things to make sure that have been completed on the ACC 45. Obviously, the patient's details are really important. We also need to see that there's an identifiable accident and injury, that the treatment injury box is only ticked if the injury was caused by a health practitioner whilst providing treatment. So those are the must-haves on the ACC 45. For complex claims, we need a bit more information. Most claims are straightforward. Someone's fallen and hurt themselves and they might have broken a bone, or they've got a bad sprain from twisting their ankle. It's quite a straightforward process. But for workplace gradual process, which hearing loss is part of, and treatment injuries, we do need more information, and we will come back and ask for more information. For treatment injuries, there's a prompt to fill in the ACC 2152, which gives us more information, and it's great if that form can be filled in at the same time. Another complex claim that's not mentioned here is late lodgement. You've got 12 months to lodge a claim. So if a patient injures themselves and they think, oh, I'll be all right, and then a couple of months later they come in and say, I've got really bad back pain, and I can't, it's obvious from that fall I had 3 months ago, but I didn't see anyone and I didn't lodge the claim. You can lodge it. I also get questions from GPs saying, oh, someone came in and anecdotally they said, oh, look, I've got this little scratch on my finger. Can you lodge an ACC claim for that? And I've said, most of us treat injuries, minor injuries ourselves every day at home. We've all got a box of Band-Aids in the cupboard, and we're not lodging claims for that. So if it's an injury for which there's no treatment or there's likely to be no consequence, just record it in your clinical notes. If the patient represents in a few days and that little scratch has turned into a wound that's now infected, you can lodge the claim at that point and backdate it to when you saw them a few days earlier. But yeah, it's like for very minor injuries that don't require any treatment, an ACC claim isn't required. Okay, carrying on. So, okay, really important note about lodging claims for accredited employers. So if a patient has a workplace accident and is employed by an accredited employer, that's an AEP, the claim is managed and paid for by the employer, not ACC. And you can find out where to send these claims on our website. So I think that it can be quite frustrating. I often forget to tell the doctor if I go about an injury, I have that I'm ACC staff and they need to write ACC staff claim on my form. So yeah, it's very important. If the injury happened at work and it's an accredited employer, they will be wanting to manage the claim. So end of section 3. Any questions come through, Ali?
Yep, there are a few questions. One I just haven't quite got to just yet. Does a claimant have to prove sexual assault historic? I don't know whether you want to park that and leave that for the question.
The answer is quite simple. It's no.
No.
If a patient if a patient discloses sexual assault or abuse, even historical, there's no requirement for proof, police reports, anything. The claim can be lodged. So, yeah. Thank you for that one. Okay, so we'll move into chapter 4, which is digital services. So using our digital services has got lots of benefits for practice administrators. You can lodge claims, you can look up claim information. For example, you can look to see if a claim has been accepted or if it's on hold or it's been declined. Send your invoices, check on your payments in real time and submit medical certificates. So it really is a good service to be using, and I'm sure that most of you are. Your practice management system, or PMS, will be the main way to generate and send your ACC 45 claims, medical certificates, the ACC 18, and your invoices to us directly. If you don't use a PMS, contact us to talk through what you want to do. We can advise you of the most suitable digital option. And when you get these slides, you'll be able to click on these blue links to get more information. Some of the questions that came up prior to the webinar were, do we get paid for an initial visit if the claim is later declined? So yes, you do get paid for that first visit. Generally, ACC doesn't pay any more invoices after the date of decline. So if those should come up. We had another question about notes requests coming without a purchase order. All notes should come with a purchase order, and if they don't, you should contact the sender of the request to ask that a purchase order is sent to you. so that you're not being unpaid for that work. So to use our digital services, you must be registered as a health provider or vendor with us. Your practice must have a health secure digital certificate, which gives you access to our digital services. There are some rules around things. To use our digital services, you must be registered as a health provider or vendor. So that's the first thing. Your practice must have the digital certificate, which gives you access to the digital services, and the digital certificate belongs to you and shouldn't be shared. Digital certificates are issued by HealthLink and are valid for 1 year. You must renew it annually if you intend to keep using ACC's digital services. And the cost of the certificate renewal is covered by ACC. So using an active digital certificate to access the Ministry of Health's network, if you are, email your request to our digital operations e-business team. So if you've already got partially set up, contact us and we'll assist you with any of those issues or questions you have around working with us digitally. If you need support, if you've got some issues using your system, the first place to contact is your PMS vendor directly. Sometimes updates, their rollouts might happen too slowly. And if you're thinking that there's an update that you're really, requiring, contact whoever your PMS supplier is and have a chat about that. If you've got issues with ACC ID numbers or any issues with our online services, please call the 0800 222 994 option 1 number and have a chat to someone at our call centre. Alternatively, you can email ebusinessinfo@acc.co.nz, quote the ID number and the error message. So this is how, if you're getting error messages popping up around ethnicity, patient details, anything like that, please do contact eBusiness. So that's the end of chapter 4. Any questions?
Mary, an interesting question here. Currently we claim for IV insertion upon initial treatment for cellulitis, but we can't claim for the subsequent second or third treatment. These cannot be claimed under POAC either, as they are injury related. Who funds medication costs for treatments?
Wow. So that's for cellulitis. So I know that some practices are part of a wider cellulitis program. I would think we might take that one offline and have a look at it a bit more carefully. I wouldn't want to get the answer wrong. I'm sure that there is somebody listening in who might have the answer. So when we reach the end of the session, we might bring that one up then and do a crowdsourcing, because I'm sure that there's a lot of good knowledge out there. Okay, so shall we move into getting paid, chapter 5. Invoicing, when to invoice, what to include and how to submit. So generally, we ask you to invoice within 2 months and the maximum is 12 months. For treatment injury, it is from the date the injury was determined. So when a health practitioner determines that a treatment injury may have occurred and lodges the claim, that is the date that we start going from. Usually it's around the cover too, so we have to accept that treatment injury as well. So if the wording from the date the injury was determined needs some more clarification, we'll work. I will come back to that at the end. What to include? So all invoices need to meet the Inland Revenue Tax invoice standards and must have the claim and ACC 45 number on. You can submit your invoices via your PMS vendor or our online services. And we generally take around 8 days to pay if you submit them electronically. You'll see on the slide it says how to invoice us. There's a link to our website where there's more information as well. What we can pay you for. So how much we can pay your practice depends on if your providers are working under either the cost of treatment regulations or a contract. So the cost of treatment regulation contributes specific rates towards the cost of consultations and any procedures completed by GPs or nurses in a combined consultation or on their own. So we have a combined GP nurse consult, and we have individual codes for a doctor working on their own or a nurse working on their own. We often get questions about, is there a combined code for a nurse and nurse practitioner? Not at the moment, but it is before MB at the moment, so it's being considered. Contracts, the pay is dependent on the amount of time taken with the patient in any relevant procedure. The time should be noted in the clinical records. It's a good way of keeping practitioners actually knowing when they are face-to-face with the clients. Because as you know, clients come in into the clinic, they spend some time in the waiting room, they might spend some time in a treatment room, they might be in the treatment room on their own for a period of time while practitioners come and go, but it's the face-to-face time that is important in those situations for these time-based contractual consults. So the contracts that we have are the rural GP contract and the urgent care contracts. What we can pay you for in terms of medical notes and additional information. So if you're registered with SureMed, ConnectNet, most requests for patients' records will come to you this way. We can also pay towards the additional information needed for treatment injury, claims, and some others. So that's the end of chapter 5. Are there any questions?
Mary, just a question going back to digital certificates. Claire has asked if the digital certificates automatically renew, and if not, do you get alerted if they're going to expire?
I don't know the answer to that one.
I don't know the answer to that one either. I hoped you might, because I didn't. Again, there will be a practice manager who knows the answer to and I thought you had to reapply, but I wouldn't like to put that as a definite. But.
Well, I was thinking.
I've got an answer. Every year we get an email from HealthLink to advise that your certificate's about to expire, right, and you just agree to have it sent, and it gets sent to you.
Thank you,
okay.
Janet.
Someone's popped that in the chat too, so thank you for that.
So did you all hear that? So Janet says that a reminder does come through. So, and the answer will be in the chat as well. Excellent.
And Lee has also answered the question about the cellulitis in the chat too, for anybody that was interested in that.
Okay, thank you. And we can revisit it at question time at the end, depending on how time is going. And yeah, right. We're now into chapter 6, which is registering. So, registering your providers. To work with us, providers need to have an ACC provider ID. You'll need to complete the ACC 24. Use a unique email address to send that through to, including the annual practicing certificate. GPs or nurses will need their HPI, that's their Health Practitioners Index number, and you'd need to submit and verify email addresses. Encourage all new providers to read and complete relevant onboarding resources. And basically, it's quite quick. If we have all the information, we'll confirm the number in 1 or 2 days. So it's quite straightforward. Updating a nurse to a nurse practitioner. So when a nurse becomes a nurse practitioner, we need to update their scope as they can now complete ACC 18 medical certificates. Contact the registration team by phone or email and we'll confirm with the Nursing Council and update our details. That's another important one. Registering your providers, provider numbers for locums. So to employ or contract a health provider for ad hoc relief work, you'll need a locum number. The registration form is the ACC 317. New providers working under your locum number need to complete an ACC 5935. There's quite a lot of information in here for locums. And an individual health provider can only work under a locum number for 3 months at a time. So I think these slides will be a valuable resource for you to have, so that when an opportunity to employ a locum comes up, you'll go, oh yes, there was something in the slide deck about what I needed to fill in for that. So when a provider moves to a different practice, they should fill out an ACC 24 and we'll process the application. If there are delays due to payment issues, we recommend the new practice uses a locum number for the provider in the interim. If outstanding payments are unresolved after 3 months, we'll issue a new ACC provider code. It's just that provider numbers are linked to bank accounts, and if you've got a practitioner who's been working in another practice and they've kept their old number, then any invoicing against their number could well go into the other practice's account. And this has happened from time to time. So it's just, we do have some ways to mitigate any risk around that. But basically, the use of a locum number can help out if there is a time period that's where invoicing hasn't been completed at the other practice. And at the end, if any of you have had this situation come up, I'm sure that this is good, is good information to have. Just a bit about doctors and nurses do get injured as well, and just a bit of information about how you can help them recover at work. Supporting staff to recover at work is best, because they can remain engaged in meaningful work, which is good for their health and well-being, and people generally recover more quickly. Staying in contact with colleagues and what's happening at the practice keeps them feeling part of the team. And I know that in some areas, an injured doctor or nurse often just comes in for morning tea once a fortnight while they're recovering, just to keep in touch with colleagues. It helps retain work habits, routines, skills and confidence, and your staff member can feel valued and cared for. If there's no financial loss, in fact, there can be a financial gain for an injured worker to come back to work and do some hours. ACC pays 80% of the person's declared earnings, and so that they can earn the other 20% from doing their actual job up to 20%. As soon as they're working more than 20% of their hours, the ACC contribution comes down at the same rate. And that's a process we call abatement, because you can't earn over 100%. So there can be some benefits to business for workers in any employment situation to keep engaged with the team and do some recovery at work. Yeah. We do have good information to help injured employees, and we have conversation guides for practice managers and the injured employees to help frame the conversation about what to ask, what to expect in setting the scene. So we do provide a lot of support in the background. We support our clients with, we have stay at work contracts where we have OTs and physios working under contract who help with a graduated return to work plan, which can be helpful for the employer and the injured person returning to work. My ACC for Business helps you keep track of work injury claims and their latest capacity details to help. So there's a lot of resources around that as well. probably what you've got more than injuries is people with COVID and respiratory infections at the moment, which is sign of the times. So that's the end of that section. Are there any questions?
Yeah, a couple of questions. Lee's jumped in and answered a few, which is great. But whether you know or not, Mary, when staff go on maternity leave, what's the expiry period you have to re-register them?
In your practice? In terms of ACC registration?
I guess so, yeah. Once again, it says Simon Wong, so I'm not sure who to direct the question through to.
Okay. I think
if it's with ACC, it wouldn't expire as such. You've got a number. You just have to provide an updated practicing certificate. I'm not sure if that's the question that you're answering.
Yeah, I think when people, basically ACC does the checking for annual practicing certificate renewals. It's just part of our business as usual. So we wouldn't know if someone was on parental leave or not.
No.
As long as someone's got a current annual practicing certificate, their provider number
doesn't expire.
No, it doesn't expire. It would stay open.
Yeah. And just another quick one, which also I don't know off the top of my head. Tanya said, I have an old guide from 2016 regarding sending medical notes or reports via HealthLink. Is this still the correct method, and is the code ACC SENCU?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure about HealthLink.
Yeah, I think we'll take
that one offline, Tanya.
Yeah, we'll take that one offline and get a bit more information around that one. And somebody, there could well be someone with the expertise around this who's got the answer at their fingertips if they've just had it. Okay, so Shao, how are we going for time? Right, we've got
good.
Good. We've got 20 minutes. So we've only got chapters 7 and 8, and then we've got question and answer time. So, and when we finish chapter 8, you can unmute your mics for when you have questions, and Ellie will moderate the flow of that question and answer time. But we'll do chapter 7 now, is resources. So we've developed some great new resources and updated our website to become the go-to area for you. These cover the basics of working with us and will include more information over time. And you can see there's a link there to getting started with ACC. We've got easy to use quick guides, including how to invoice, how to use read codes, and how to register as a provider. There's an introductory video to get you started with some basics about what we do and how we'll work together. And webinars like this one that are tailored and talk directly to providers. So I'm hoping that we get some very helpful feedback from this at the end, because obviously we're piloting this with you, and I'm hoping that you'll give us some helpful feedback. Okay, resources for you and your providers, online learning modules. So obviously there's plenty more to learn, and we're always developing new things and new resources. So our online learning modules are useful for any level of experience or role. There's interactive learning about us, cover and medical certification, and once again, you'll see there's a link to online learning modules. So, very good. And what's next? So next, you'll receive an email with a link to the recording of this webinar, where you can also download the slides. We do want your feedback. We're keen to make sure that future webinars are engaging and helpful, and have informative, great information for you and other health providers. So to provide feedback about today's session, it's provider.engagement@acc.co.nz. And in the subject line, can you please put that it was for this particular webinar. I think it's Practice Managers webinar, just so that when it comes through, we can easily identify that this is feedback for this session. I'll just leave that up for a few minutes. So again, we've come to the end of that part of the session. Ellie, do you want to close with the karakia, and then we'll move on to the next part, which is about how to contact, just some contact information, and then we'll move into questions and answers.
Sure. Whaia, whaia, whaia te tika, whaia te pono, whaia te aroha, mau te oranga tangata, kia puta, ki te whao, kita o marama, homie, hui, taiki.
Thanks, Ellie. Okay, so this last slide is just general information, how to contact us. So provider help and general billing, provider registration, where to send any electronic billing inquiries, and find out what you need is another resource, and how to contact engagement and performance managers like Ellie and myself. And there is a one-pager on how to resolve issues together. If something comes up and you're not quite sure where to go or how to get it resolved, there's that resource as well.